Blog
Welcome
Talk
to
Radio.
MindShifters Radio. Welcome to MindShifters Radio. My name is Michael Ryce, and we are here to support you in your self-healing process, and in particular, in learning the ancient Aramaic technology of forgiveness. Forgiveness not being anything to do with letting other people off the hook because of what's happening in your physiology, or what's happening in your emotions, or your thoughts, or your mind, but rather a tool for how to change what's going on in your body, your mind, your emotions. And so our topic on forgiveness comes out of the ancient Aramaic language. And the ancient Aramaic language is a language, interestingly enough, that was the root of at least 5 of the world's major religions, though it is not a religious language. It's actually a physics language. And when you recognize that it's a physics language, you realize that these people thousands of years ago knew exactly how the world worked. They knew exactly how the mind worked. They knew exactly how the body worked. You know, yesterday our topic was laws of living. Has nothing to do with the rule of an authority, but rather is simply how this world works, how the energy systems move, how the energy patterns work, and how to recover the conscious awareness of your creatorship. Probably the greatest atrocity done to us as human beings down through the ages, and that we've had hidden from us, is we've had hidden from ourselves the fact that we are by nature creators. And we bought into it. The truth is, you create everything that happens in your life. You set up what happens in your life. And when you pretend that you don't do that, you hide from yourself the power with which you do that. When you recognize that it's all about you, then you realize that you can find those parts of your mind that create the things that you say, I don't ever want to do this again, and you get to change them. Of course, if you remain in denial, if you remain in the space of, well, this doesn't belong to me, this is all about somebody else, then those parts of your mind remain hidden. And as long as they're hidden, they're not visible, they're not changeable. Forgiveness is the ancient Aramaic technology for how to make those parts of the mind visible once again and to bring correction to them, bring change to them. And so that's what we're here to do today, to support you in learning that process. And let's check and see if Jeanie is on the line. Jeanie, are you with us? I guess not. I know that Jeanie was having some problems with her computer, and so she's not with us yet, and so we don't have any callers. And I'd like to move into the discussion on the definition of the word love. You know, we live in a culture that has all kinds of crazy definitions for love. Definitions that mean absolutely nothing in terms of the actual presence of love. And so when we start out with an accurate definition, we have the opportunity to correct all of the things we've been doing in the name of love that had nothing to do with love. Doing crazy things in the name of love is called looking for love in all the wrong places. Many of you will probably remember that old tune, looking for love in all the wrong places. And the belief that love has to do with, sexual athletics, sacrificing yourself, giving yourself away, approval, all kinds of crazy definitions. And so we want to correct that definition, and the reason why that definition can be rather difficult to correct without an experiential way of correcting it is that when you can't speak about a thing and you don't have the experience of it, you make up all kinds of things. And so what we want to offer you is an experiential definition of love. And the best way I know to do that is remember the last time you held a newborn child. If you've never held a newborn, let me offer you my experience of a newborn. When my daughter was born, I delivered her head. She looked into my eyes with the biggest grin, the most clarity you could imagine, crystal clear eyes, and just looked at me. And I went into an altered state of mind, an altered state of experience and being that I didn't come down from for days. I had had the direct experience of love. And so for a moment I'm going to ask you to imagine holding a newborn, being in that awesome space. And notice it's not a space for words. It's simply a direct experience. And how do you put that into words? Well, we've had people try. We'll ask people to put the essence of that newborn into a single word in our workshops. And so people will say things like awesome and purity and beauty and love and presence. And we actually, Jeanie and I did a workshop in an alternative school out in Washington State a couple of months ago. And in this alternative school, we were dealing with kids about ninth grade level. And they were basically kind of outcast kids. They weren't making it in the regular school system. And I acknowledged the school system because they actually created a space for these kids. There were some awesome kids. Several of them had children. And there was one young girl who was about 16 who, after Jeanie had made a list on the board of these descriptors of the newborn child, put her hand up and said, well, that describes my daughter who's 2. That describes her, but it doesn't say everything that's true about her. There's so much more. It's like, yeah, we can't say it in words, but we can come to an experience of it. And the goal and the idea of this work is to give people that direct experience and then to invite them to live with it forever in their minds, in their physiology, and in their hearts. And when we choose to do that, everything in our lives changes. And I think I just heard Jeanie come on the line. Are you there, Jeanie?
I am.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Welcome. Computer problem solved?
Just as I was getting ready to sign on, and, of course, it had to take forever to get back up again. But we have a couple callers on and a couple people in the chat room, but nobody's asking any questions yet. So just remind everybody the call-in number, 646-200-4169.
Cool. Did you say we had a couple of callers, honey?
Yes, but they're not flagged that they want to ask a question. They're just listening.
Oh, okay, so they're just listening in. All right, awesome. So the other question, we'll just go on. Do you have a thought, hon, on where we're going? I've just been talking about the direct experience of love that we're designed for and invited people to imagine holding the newborn and come back to that experience. Do you have anything you want to add to it?
No, I was listening to you talk about the kids, though, at that alternative school, and they were just phenomenal, amazing. I mean, they got it, they understood it, even though they were kind of like an outcast from other kids. They were right there.
Yeah, it was really a powerful experience to be with those kids. It was just amazing to watch the intellects that were there, the beings that were there, the presence that was there, and it was so cool to watch this young girl. It was kind of fun because when we finished our lesson with them, we were leaving the school, and her mother had brought her daughter to the school, and she just couldn't get to us fast enough to present her daughter to us. That was so much more than all the things that Jeanie had put on the list. It was really powerful.
Yeah.
And, when you give – go ahead, sweetie.
I was just going to say, it just made me think of the incident yesterday when we were coming out of Whole Foods, and there was one of those awesome little new beings, and he was upset over something, not getting some grapes or something little trivial or whatever, and he was crying, and as they were coming out the door, I heard him saying, "Mommy, please don't beat me. I love you." And my heart just went out. It was just like, oh, my God. I mean, he's such a precious little being. I mean, he probably wasn't 2, and yet he's already building the brain cells of, being beat. And it's like,
And the fact, and actually both of us went into tears as she shared that to me, but the fact that this little being is already learning to manipulate mom into not beating him. Don't hit me, I love you. And, it's so crazy what we're doing in our world to ourselves and to each other. And our purpose here is to restore the active presence of love to each of us, that we live out of that and we let go of those crazy games we've been taught to play, kind of an extension of that, Jeanie. I think about Jeanie and I went to prison about 2 years ago in Arizona. And sadly, in that prison system, they start putting kids in prison at 9 years of age in Arizona. Arizona puts more people in prison per population than anywhere else in the world. Big business, big business. But we would work with about 100 kids from the ages of 9 to 16. And when Jeanie asked that question about the newborn, they described their newborn experiences, and we had the same list on the board as we always do. I don't care where we ask the question. The list is always the same. It's some variation on the theme of love. When we were able to look at that list and then take these 100 kids, tough guys, tough girls, they're in jail, and look them in the eye and share with them that list described who they were. You want to see some hearts melt. You want to see some toughness disappear. You want to see kids who are getting ready to move out of being in trouble all the time because their identity, the identity they've bought into, is kind of the identity of that little kid that Jeanie was just talking about, who says, Mom, don't beat me, I love you. That when we buy an identity of, what we need to do is find ways to defend and protect ourselves in the world, and we need to control everything and everybody so we don't get hurt, then it leads to all kinds of aberrant behaviors. And all those aberrant behaviors are a result of the lack of the active experience of the presence of love. And the tools that we're taught in the Aramaic, the tools we teach in each of our workshops, whether the workshop is why is this happening to me again, healing through relationships, communication, did you hear what I think I said, purpose, personal power, and commitment. Tonight we're doing the codependence, the interdependence. Each and every one of the workshops that we do, and there are 15 different ones that we have on DVD, each workshop is about a different tool for being restored to the experience of the active presence of love, no matter what's going on in your world. Now, the mind that's based in something other than love says, well, that's ridiculous. You can't do that. Look at all those dangerous people out there, and, anger is the only way I survive. Well, excuse me, but anger is the only thing that will kill you. Anger, if it's present in your physiology, creates disease processes, and it's time for us to be about forgiving that. And that doesn't mean forgive the people we say make us angry, because you'll notice every time you've been angry, you've been there. Your anger isn't about anybody else. Forgiveness is something you apply to your anger to remove it and delete it from your physiology so that you can go back to an experience of a human life, the active presence of love.
Yeah, exactly. We do have a caller now. Hold on just 1 second. 417, you're on the air. Who have we got, and where are you calling from?
Hey, Michael, it's Terry Bowen.
Hi.
Well, hey there, Bowen.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming in clearly now. You were cutting out a little bit there. For those who haven't met Terry, Terry is our artist in residence at Heartland and construction coordinator and, all kinds of things, aren't you, Terry?
Yep, ever expanding.
All of the above.
Yeah, all growing and expanding and learning every day.
Yes.
Do you have a question for Michael?
Yeah, I did. I'm looking at this, like the workshop, healing through relationships, and everything that you teach is, to me, is so interconnected. There's like just one rolls, like the different workshops roll into all tied together, and the more that I listen and practice using the tools, the more they kind of blend together. So it was the challenge is that my mind wants to try to separate out these different workshops. Like, okay, I'm going to work on my relationship. So what is it I need to do about healing through relationships? But yet there's the stress management aspect of it. That wait a minute, I'm going to take that hat off and stop working on my relationships and work on my stress management. So what tool is it I need there? So that's kind of some of the stuff that's going on. But it's like it all kind of flows together. So as far as like tracking on a specific method, I don't want to use the worksheets every day. But what's a good direction to like maybe is there an order that's a good suggested plan of moving through these different tools?
Well, Terry, you bring up an interesting historical piece of this work, and I've been doing this work for a little better than 40 years now. And about 25 years ago, I first taught the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop, the main workshop, the title of my book and DVDs, CDs, all of that. And it was all originally in one, and you've heard me say as I introduced the workshop, this workshop was originally designed to be a 2-week workshop. And it was.
Oh, yeah.
The original Why workshop included all of the workshops that I now do. And so as I've developed each aspect of the workshop, it's been broken out into another workshop. So the root workshop is always the forgiveness. It's always the Why Is This Happening to Me Again. And then the others are all breakouts from that with different tools. So, for instance, in Why Is This Happening to Me Again, I'll say to people, if you play the game of projection communication, if you say to somebody, you made me angry, then what you're saying to your mind is, mind, you're only allowed to show me a picture that somebody else made me angry. So then when you decide to take responsibility, you're going to say something more like, well, what you just said brought anger up for me, and what I'd like to do is heal my anger. So now you're healing through relationships, and you're moving into responsibility communication. So we took the responsibility communication, and we break that out into a whole workshop where we give 7 steps of responsibility communication. And healing through relationships, there's a commitment for how to function in relationships. So you're right. They all totally and completely tie together, and you can't really separate one of them out. And that's why, and it always becomes kind of fun and intensive when we do our residential workshops at Heartland, is that people will ask, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? Well, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I love the opportunity to answer that question because I simply turn around right on the board, all of the above, because it's every tool, every time. Now, different people find themselves becoming better acquainted with certain tools and find certain tools more effective for them than others. And so I suggest that each person start with always the forgiveness process, the reality management sheet. And if you are new to this show and you don't know what we're talking about, you can go to the website, whyagain.com. That's WHY. And then the word again, AGAIN.com. And if you look on the right-hand side, you can click on a thing that says Download Worksheets. There's a new Chapter 24. In Chapter 24 in my book, I explain the process of forgiveness. I guide the character in the book through the forgiveness process. So you can download that set of instructions and the 7-step worksheet, and you can start to work with the forgiveness process. And then from there, acquaint yourself with each and every one of the other tools. I don't know, Terry, if you were on the show the other day when I did mention the fact that you had shared with me recently that you had re-upped your commitment to doing the worksheet process. Maybe you would just share a little bit with folks what you've been doing with the forgiveness process and what re-upping it meant and why you did that.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Well, I first connected with you, Michael, almost 7 years ago when you did a workshop in Sarasota. Went to that workshop and said, oh, yeah, this is something that could benefit me and lots of folks. So let's get in there and do it. And I hung in there with it for, a few weeks and then kind of moved away from it. And that cycle went on and on for a period of about 4 years, where I'd get really connected with your work, go to a workshop, an intensive, start doing the work again, and then my stuff would come up to a certain level, and then it's like, okay, I'm out of here, you know, and or get busy into the world and all that kind of stuff. So what really changed things for me was when David Hayes, our coordinator here, he came up with this game, you know, of making an agreement, calling it Building the Brain Cells, and I committed to first just doing one worksheet a day and letting someone know that I had completed that agreement. And I was only going to do it for 10 days, just a 10-day period. I do one worksheet, and that was really all the willingness I had at that time, because of the stress loads that had built up from improper management of my stress and my mind and my goals. I was pretty much insane, you know. But I was had just enough of a grasp to agree to do one worksheet and connect with another person, which was very important for me too, and do it for that one cycle. So that's been going on for over 2 years now. And as I gradually went through that and added more tools, I've strengthened myself and empowered myself to continue doing more and more. Well, I had moved up to, maybe I should do more than one worksheet a day. It might benefit even a little bit more. You know, I don't want to get too carried away here, but let's move into it. You know, the resistance is all up. And I got up to the doing the more of the worksheets. And what really shifted was during that workshop in October, the fall intensive, and the workshop leading up to that with at Mountain Home. And I heard again, you know, why don't you look at doing 5 worksheets a day for 40 days? And I thought, okay, it just, it seemed good. I was ready. So I committed to that. And at the same time, I was reading at least 5 minutes a day along in the Why Again book. And it really came together at a deeper level with that consistency and upping my game to the 5 worksheets. And things happened with my relationship with my son and my daughter and my wife and my mom, and just all kinds of things were opening up, and there was healing taking place. And I thought, well, this is good stuff. So by building on those successes and having the support, I said, this is so good. I'm going to re-up for another 40 days and move into it. And coincidentally, on the 39th day, I finished the reading of the Why Again book. On the 40th day was the end of that cycle, so I had done 200 worksheets and read through the book on that one cycle. And coincidentally enough, as I was going through the worksheet process, it would seem that I was very in touch with what was going on in the book, or the book was in touch with what was going on with me. There was like a synchronicity that occurred there that also elevated my experience in my work, to the point that I said, I committed to doing it for 360. I'm looking to do 9. I said, I can do this for a year. I'll just do a 40-day block at a time. And then as I went along, I upped it to the 10 worksheets a day. And that is something that was just not in my imagination or any thought that was something I could really accomplish 2 years ago. So I had to build the brain cells, literally, build the experience, the energy, and the tools to be able to take it up to that level.
Awesome. And what are you finding out of doing those 10 worksheets a day?
I'm finding that the process continues, and that there's so much in my carbon-based memory data base, that it really amazes me, and that by having the foundation, the really strong foundation from my construction background, I've got really good footers. It's got the rebar and the right strength of concrete in there, and I've got a foundation to build on. So just 2 weeks ago, the stuff that was coming up was telling me that all this is just pointless. This is, I just making all this up. And this is what my mind was telling me. I tapped into deeper and deeper levels. However, there was enough of the foundation, which is connected to my observer self, to my higher self, to say, oh, I see what's coming up. This is a really deep level here. This is another layer of that. So as opposed to running out and running away and taking the geographic or whatever other means of dissociation that may come up, I had trained myself to the point through the daily work that I could just beat through that space. And it was about 3 days where I couldn't really even carry on a conversation very well with David or anybody. There was so much hostility. It was just like my mind was flooded with these toxins. And prior to that, that would have been enough to say, this just doesn't work, when in fact it is working, and it's working really good. So I'm able to see that, with a whole different perspective.
Terry, that's just awesome input for everybody to get the firsthand experience of your experience of that. That's really cool that's happening. I love it. It's just amazing and awesome to watch. I know that Terry was saying that he started the work about 7 years ago, and he had his 2 younger children involved as well, and it was really cool to be doing an intensive, a residential 9-day workshop. And Terry and Michelle would show up with their 5-year-old daughter the first workshop, and their son was 9. And here are these 2 little beings who are doing worksheets, who are doing energy field work on each other, are doing breathing with each other. Michaela walks by her mom, who's sitting in a relaxed place in the intensive, and Michaela, the 5-year-old, turns to her mom and says, "Have you done your 5 worksheets today?" Back a few months ago, I was in Asheville, and I stayed at Michelle's house with the 2 kids, and it was really cool to come in, just out of the blue and sit down at the table, and there's a stack of worksheets that Michaela's working on. She's now what? What's Michaela now? 9? 8?
10.
10. Oh,
no.
10. Yeah.
So here's this child of 10 who's just flowering, and she's amazing, and she's just sitting at the table with a set of worksheets. And Ian, Terry's son, was out at a field trip with the school, so I stayed in his room. And I went to put some music on, and there's the meditation CD, Wellness to Stillness, in his CD player, and, he's listening to it. I mean, it's just, when kids are brought up with this, it just makes such a difference in their world, such a difference.
I've heard Terry tell many times about, coming in from work or something and being all stressed out, and one of the kids asking him if he needs to do a worksheet or something. Do you want to share any of that, Terry?
Yeah. Their program is they have that foundation already to where, okay, there's some stuff up here. Let's maybe we can make a suggestion. Now, this is all at an unconscious level. It just comes naturally up. There's stuff up going on here where it's like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine that dynamic in my family much as a child, and for them to say, it looks like you might need to do a worksheet, and you got some stuff up, my anger and irritation, and then when you look at these beings, like Michael referred to them as little beings, and it just opens my heart, and it does things. It transforms the energy just from that thought.
Terry, it's such an amazing, I acknowledge both you and Michelle for the amazing leap that you've made. Could you imagine coming home at 7 or 8 or 9 years of age and going to your dad and saying, "Dad, it looks like you're angry. Would you like me to help you do a worksheet?"
Yeah. I'll have to work on
the progress that's happened. So what would that have looked like in your family of origin, Terry?
What was my action? What would that look like? It could have changed it. It would
have been the 7-year-old going into Dad in the middle of one of his upsets. What would that have looked like? I mean, in my family system, it would have been called getting knocked into the middle of next week.
Yeah, the thing that came up for me was terror, terrifying. It's like, what, are you crazy?
So that might be a good worksheet, Terry.
Yeah, okay.
That'd be a good worksheet. Yeah. Cool.
Michael, you share too. You said Michael J. did that one time with you too.
I was thinking about that. Now, my son is now 31. He was about 8, and he was having a conflict with my daughter, who's a year and a half younger than he is. And as he's, kind of bullying her and picking on her, I grab him by the scruff of the neck. I've had enough of this. We're going upstairs and we're going to have a talk. And I start out with my talk with, enough of this. What are you doing with your sister? And I was in upset. And of course, in blockage, it was all about him. And he turns to me and he says, "Oh, Dad, you mean like in the workshops you say I'm bringing up something for you that you haven't dealt with?" It's like, he swaddled his kid. He was right. And so I stopped and I breathed. And my son at 8, now, of course, he'd been involved in this work since conception, but at 8, he processed me through what was going on in me around he and his sister having conflicts. Now, of course, when I was a kid, I never had a conflict with my 2 older sisters who were 2 and 4 years older than me.
Oh, right.
He processed me, and then once we completed that process, once he held the space of love for me to work through my stuff around it, he started to share some things with me that he had done to his mom when he was small. It was I don't even know exactly what age, but 3 or 4, he had hit his mother. And here he is now, he's 8, and all of a sudden he's sharing with me his pain at having hit his mother, remembering what happened to him when he was 4. And in the middle of that process, as you talk about, Terry, how it's all connected, he then realizes that there's more coming up for him. He's telling me things he's never shared with anybody before. And he says, "Dad, I've got to breathe." Then one of the other tools we teach is still point breathing. So here's my son at 8. He processes me, supports me in healing. He starts to deal with some of the things that he's been carrying since he was 4. And then he realizes, I need another tool. And he lays down. He says, "Dad, I need to breathe." And he starts to go into still point breathing. And I lay down beside him and still point breathe with him. It's like, oh, my God, when I think of how that would have looked in my family as a kid.
Yeah.
But, that's the kind of transformation we can make in just one generation. And, if you go back, there's a cool story about Moses wandering in the desert for 40 years. And, it's a journey that should have taken 2 weeks, but here they are wandering for 40 years. My son at 8 was able to deal with some 4-year-old issues in him. And he didn't have to wait till he was 40. Most people, before they wake up in the desert in those teachings, is just a code word for the unconscious. Most people don't start waking up until 40 plus and go, gee, maybe there's something else happening here. Maybe things aren't the way they appear to be. And, and what they said in that, if you look and check that story about the Jews wandering in the desert, what they said was in order to get out of the desert, the old generation had to die off. And that didn't mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. It meant that the root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. The old causes held in the mind and in the genetics had to be dealt with, processed, removed. And in one generation, Terry, that's so awesome for you to share that. And, when I look at what my childhood was like, and then I look at my son and the shift, it's awesome what we can do if we actually have the tools to do it. Now, of course, it's not possible to do if you don't have the tools. But when you have the tools, it's absolutely phenomenal.
Well, there's one part I want to add to that, too. And this is from the experience that you bringing back up to the surface these memories about my treasures with the children, the pearls of great price, and all this. Yet, when I'm accessing the data, the carbon-based memory, the state, whatever you want to call it, the state, when that stuff's coming up, I don't even have a clue, can't remember that, can't connect to it, and that's why I need you I need Jeanie. I need David. I need people that come to the meetings. I need to come to the workshops to stay connected, because by myself, I'm going down the tube, back down the rabbit hole, and all that stuff will open back up and roll back into it. I have to be connected to other people who are doing the work too, and that's that real piece.
It definitely takes a community. As a great political leader once said, it takes a whole community to raise a child, and the truth is most of us are still children in big bodies, and we need to be raised up. And when we have a community around us, there's an awesome African proverb I love to quote, and it says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And it is together that we do this. And that was part of our reasoning for starting this radio show, to set aside an hour in the middle of the day every day where anybody on the planet could tap into support for doing this. Because, of course, the way we travel, and right now we're in South Florida. If anybody's down this way, we've got free workshops tonight, tomorrow, Sunday. You can look at our website, www.whyagain.com, and tap into the schedule. But when we travel like this, of course, we're in an area for a certain period of time. We leave the tools behind, and we invite someone to begin a support group. And if somebody starts a support group, then there's ongoing support. Yesterday we heard from Dr. Tim up in Chicago, and when there's that ongoing support, it enhances the ability for people to use the tools. And so this radio show and the willingness to do that, which is kind of strange when you're on the road, and but to do this so that wherever on the planet somebody is who's decided to tap into this work, they have ongoing support for using the tools. So this is our online MindShifters radio, assisting people to shift their minds out of the generational insanities and back into an actual human life, which is, it changes everything.
Would you touch on, just for a minute, the part in healing through relationships? I believe it's the healing through relationships workshop, or maybe the responsibility communication, or all the above. But where you talk about how when I come, say I'm coming into a relationship, and to me, my definition of a relationship is so expanded from what it used to be. But let's look at the primary intimate relationship. And you talk about the vitality meter, the hypothetical kind of imaginary vitality meter, and that if I've got a 4 trauma thing going on, and then my partner has a 4, but when we come together, our vitality is lifted up, kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah. There's oftentimes, sadly, that's a point where a lot of relationships break, because when we weaken ourselves, and basically, the way people drug themselves in this culture, whether it's junk food, whether it's alcohol or drugs or legal drugs or illegal drugs or junk food, whatever, Twinkies, when they drug themselves, they weaken themselves. And when they weaken themselves, they can hide from themselves. They can more easily create a dissociated mind. If you're at a full level 10 vitality, you can't dissociate from anything. You can't hide anything from yourself. So people start out by denying and then by holding the breath. And when they hold the breath weakens. You can further stuff things down. When the breath isn't enough, just give me a fifth of scotch and then I'll be fine. Everything will be hidden. And so when we drive ourselves down to that level 4 vitality, there's a lot of stuff in us that we don't ever see, that's locked in chemically and is just not available. And when we enter into relationship with someone who we strengthen through and strengthen with, when we join in our vitality, the empowerment that comes to that opens the dissociated mind. And so all of a sudden that stuff starts to come out. And unfortunately, people associate that stuff coming up with their partner, and I only feel this when I'm around you, so it must be your fault, rather than I feel this around you. Thank you for vitalizing me, so now I can see the parts of my mind that I need to heal. I appreciate your support. Let's move through it instead of let me blame you and want to separate from you. But yeah, it's sad. That's a point where a lot of relationships break. So
it sounds like that thing that I might call falling in love, so to speak, coming together with someone, and there's this great energy and enthusiasm, and I feel I'm in love. And what's happening there is that there's some type of an energetic resonance that's going on that is lifting me up to a little bit of a higher state, like we're kind of built. It's a built-in support help system, but yet if I don't know what to do with it, then there's the potential there is for it to go awry.
Right, and that's why the workshop that we do on relationships is not called Healing Your Relationships. It's because there's no such thing as a diseased relationship. Every relationship is an absolutely perfect creation. Every relationship will perfectly reflect to you whatever in your mind you need to heal. And when you recognize that, that situation that I'm talking about with my son, I'm in upset and I'm in denial and pretending my upset doesn't belong to me. It's all about the way my son is treating his sister. And he has the wisdom and the ability at 8 to turn it around and process me and support me in healing, which is absolutely awesome. And everything changes when we're able to do that, when we're able to take responsibility. But the minute that we're pointing a finger at somebody else, then you don't have access to your own mind when you're pointing the finger at somebody else, and therefore you can't heal the parts of you that are causing your pain. The whole essence of this work is to recapture the source of your pain and dump it, get rid of it. And dumping and getting rid of the source of your pain is called forgiveness. It has nothing to do with letting other people off the hook because of what's happening inside of you. It has to do with changing the dynamic that's happening inside of you. That's the whole bottom line of the forgiveness process.
And the relationship things, we did the healing through relationships last night. And one of the things that we mentioned was, we have relationships with everybody. We have relationships with not just a significant other, but with parents and with children and coworkers and bosses and teachers and students. And the same thing applies in every relationship. And I just happened to think of Julie Haverstick, who is also one of our Heartlanders. And she was a school teacher in Dayton, Ohio, and taught kindergarten and first graders. And she taught them this relationship and loving and treating each other, the way that you're supposed to treat them. And she taught from such a higher space. And I thought about the little boy that she tells that he was in her class and he was like the worst of the worst. And then at the end, he was like her helper, teaching other children, helping them to do worksheets to work through their issues. And then he moved on to the next grade. And when something came up and he came back to her class to get a worksheet to work through it, and he got in trouble with his next grade teacher because he went back to another teacher. And it's like, this needs to be taught to kids, and there's so few out there that are teaching them, including parents.
Yeah. And, we tend to do the behaviors that are passed generation to generation. That's the whole wandering in the desert. And, Jeanie, maybe you would share, because it will kind of round out and complete the story about what you observed at the health food store yesterday, that the phone call that you made after you observed this little kid saying, "Mommy, don't hit me, I love you," a child of 2 or 3.
Yeah, I was in tears, and I called my son, who is now, he's getting ready to have his 23rd birthday, and there weren't too many times. I mean, he was an awesome child. He's an awesome young man now, and there were very few times that I had to get on his case for anything, but I called him and apologized. I said, for every time that I ever whipped you, I sincerely apologize. I wished I knew then what I know now and that I had done it differently. And he texted, he was like, "Mom, are you crazy?" And he texted me back later, and he was like, if my childhood was rough, I'd hate to hear or see the life experiences of those that complain about their growing up. He said, mine was fine. But still, even though it was just a very few times, it's like, I wished I had done it different.
And, Jeanie, the gift that I think is so awesome that you're giving your son is you're opening a space for that dynamic of using abuse to control. You're opening a space for that to heal. And, they're talking about having children, and you know what? He's never going to raise a hand to a child.
Yeah.
Even though he's an athlete, he's physical, he's kind of the macho tough guy, but I guarantee out of that conversation he'll never raise his hand to a son or a daughter.
Yeah. I hope so.
It's an awesome gift you give.
Thank you.
And what we're here to do is to give that gift to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. You know, it's time for us to wake up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that if, like you said, everything's like passed on down, and if you look back even like at all the wars and things, if this had been the foundation of everybody, there wouldn't be wars.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And the whole mindset of our culture is one of violence, verbal, emotional, physical violence. And you look at the Greek roots of our culture. There's an interesting film that I suggest people be prepared to breathe and do worksheets around. But to see how perfected this viciousness and this violence was thousands of years ago in this culture, that is the root of our culture. Go and rent or buy the movie 300. And it's the story of the Spartans. And I was so struck when I watched that film. Here's this young boy who's ultimately going to be the hero. And, of course, we live in a culture that makes heroes because kings like to kill people in order to take your property. But you watch this young boy who's in his mother's home in a gentle, loving space, and then it comes the time when it's time for him to be removed from that. So they tear this young boy out of his mother's arms, and in the next scene, what you see is this, he's maybe 8 or 9 years of age. You see him being trained, and he's pounding the face of another 8 or 9-year-old boy into the ground. He's now in training to be what that culture calls a man. Excuse me, there is no manhood in that. That's insanity. There is no macho human life. No such thing exists. That macho life is one that has so much pain and trauma in it that all it knows how to do is reach out and fight and kill. And of course, this heroic 300 movie shows how this young man is now trained to be the toughest warrior in the world, and he takes down thousands, and he is a hero. Excuse me. If that's the definition of a hero, make mine vanilla. It's time for us to reclaim our human lives, and we need to reclaim them from the mindset that our culture has taught us and brought us into. In fact, in one of the Beatitudes in the Aramaic language, where we're told, it says, "Blessed are they mourning their wrongs, for they will be comforted." What it actually says is that there's a neural structure in us that guides us to happiness and well-being. Our culture specializes in suppressing that neural structure. And so that beatitude, as opposed to starting out saying, blessed are they, what it says is a latent neural structure implanted in you to guide you to happiness and well-being becomes your conscious possession. And then that particular beatitude says, you who love truth, who look into your errors in thought and the errors of your society, for you will be cured of mental stress. And it's not until we're willing to look into those errors. What kind of insanity is in a 2 to 3-year-old child's experience when, because he has tears over something he wants, he turns to his mother and says, "Don't hit me. I love you." What has this child come through? What has this child had forced upon them? This child started out as the awesome, absolute, total, complete presence of love. Where do you suppose he's going to end up? You know where he's going to end up? If nothing changes, I'll tell you where he'll end up. Here he has this woman who, whatever, she weighs 160 pounds, is 5'8", and takes this 2-year-old child and whacks on him. And he's going to grow up. And he's probably going to be a 250-pounder. And he's going to have this person that he calls his wife. And when the stress is up and the chips are down, you know what he's going to do? He's going to do exactly what Mom did. And we're going to blame him and call him a wife abuser. And, of course, the same, in fact, if you look at the statistics, the type of child abuse that happens, there's more of it with women than with men. And, and it's not that anybody's bad. Is this 2-year-old, when he becomes 30 and beats the hell out of his wife or his children, is he a bad person? No, he's not a bad person. He's just doing what his generations have taught him to do. Our culture's freaking insane, folks. It's time for us to wake up. It's time for us to reclaim the human life. That's what we're here to do. And when we do, everything changes. But you can't change it if you're going to blame everybody else for it. If this young man at 25 years of age, he weighs 260 pounds, and his wife gives him the look, just like his mom used to, and he turns around and slaps her in the face, what's he probably going to do? What's his culture taught him to do? Yeah, well, you really made me angry, and you deserve that. Do you think he's ever going to be able to change the behavior that he acquired from his mother when he was 2? I mean, it's already implanted in this kid. He's begging his mother not to hit him at 2. What's going on? So here he is at 25. He doesn't remember being 2 and begging his mother not to hit him and being hit. He doesn't know that's the root of the behavior that he learned from his power person. Actually, in our workshop tonight in Codependence to Interdependence, we're going to introduce the concept of a power person and how there are only 3 levels of behavior. And the 3rd level of behavior, when one's functioning out of their power person dynamics, is that when the stress is up and the chips are down, when one becomes ultra-stressed, they'll do whatever their power person did that they hated the most. And as long as he denies his ownership of his behavior and his rage, what is his rage about? His rage is about being hit at 2 years of age. And here he is 23 years later hitting because he's enraged. And his rage is simply a drug to cover up the pain of the 2-year-old who was hit inappropriately. I shouldn't even say inappropriately because there's no appropriate hitting of a 2-year-old. But until he can stop and go, oh, my God, what am I doing here? This is the person I say that I love. Until he can collapse the projection on his wife and come into responsibility. And this is what all the tools are about. Communication, did you hear what I think I said? Healing through relationships. Why is this happening to me again? Codependence to interdependence, getting the stress you need. This is the use of the tools that will allow him to go back and experience the pain that he experienced it too. And most people say, well, I don't want to experience that again. Well, if you don't ever let yourself go back and experience it in the context of the use of the tools and in the context of love, guess what's going to control your whole life? And guess what's going to happen to your future generations? And it goes on and on. This is the Jews wandering in the desert. This is the 40 years in the desert. And when we wake up and recognize that, we can change all of it. All of it's insane. None of it's necessary. But you can't change what you're blaming somebody else for. And our whole culture's language is based in projection and blame.
I thought of two things when you were talking about that. One, not only is it the fear and the frustrations and the things that the 2-year-old's experiencing from his mom, but also the fact that, at such a young age, a lot of children are 3 or 4 before they lose their beingness. But this child's already lost it at 2, and you've talked in workshops before about the rage of giving up who you really are for who you think you need to be for somebody else to approve of your behaviors and your actions, and that rage is the root of everything.
Yeah, it's the root. The rage from that experience is the root of every disease, of every pain, of every trauma that everyone will experience in their whole lives. Now, of course, they say, no, that's not true, Michael, because they came and did it to me. Well, but wait a minute. You forget, let's go first full circle in our show. We started out with the idea that we are creators, and according to the energies we hold, we attract results. And so if we need somebody to play out an abusive behavior, literally by holding pain around having been abused, we're setting up a literal, measurable, high-energy wave that says, I need somebody to come and abuse me. And there's never going to be a shortage of volunteers until we all wake up and become conscious of what we're doing and change those dynamics. And that's what this MindShifters radio show is about. That's the whole process of forgiveness. And it's totally opposite of what the Greeks taught us because, You know, when people are in pain and trauma, they're pretty stupid. They're pretty controllable. They make great commercial servants. They make great slaves. Time for us to stop being slaves.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought of, too, when you referenced that you can't get rid of something until you own it, that it's your own, I use the example a lot of times when I'm working with someone, you know, it's like the home that we're staying in here in Fort Lauderdale. It's absolutely beautiful. The stuff that's in it's not mine, so I can't get rid of, you know, her magazines and her papers and her old dishes or whatever. I can't go through and get rid of stuff in her house because it's not my stuff. But if I were in my house, I could get rid of stuff because it's mine. And it's the same way with our internal things. You know, if we think that it belongs to someone else, then we can't get rid of it because it's not. We don't think it's ours to get rid of. And so once we can own it and once we see that it's ours, then we have total freedom to clean it out.
Yeah, the mind can't even show you that it's yours until you start to language about the fact that it is yours. The mind will always, that's the communication workshop, the mind will always show you what you ask it to show you. You made me angry, my mind will show me that you made me angry. When I can move to responsibility communication, gee, I have anger up for me, then my mind can show me the root of my anger. I'm not dissociated from my anger anymore. It can't control me anymore, and I can change it.
Exactly. Well, we're down to 3 minutes. The website where you can get our schedule is www.why. Again, that's WHYAGAIN.com. And click on schedules and travel schedules, and you can see where we are. Our schedule's been filling up quite rapidly. Michael, if you want to announce again some of the places we're going to be in the next couple of weeks.
Sure. If you're in South Florida, we're in Fort Lauderdale right now. Or, you know, if you're in that icy cold stuff up there, you might want to make a little journey to Florida. Tonight we're doing Codependence to Interdependence. Tomorrow night we're doing Purpose, Personal Power, Commitment on Las Olas Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale. You can go to the website. There are directions on the flyer. If you go to why, again, WHY, again, AGAIN.com, right-hand side schedules, click on the time frame that works for you. So we're doing tonight, tomorrow night, and Sunday we'll be here in Fort Lauderdale, and we just scheduled yesterday to do a series of 6 workshops, and then we've got scheduled another MindShifters and Still Point Breathing the weekend after this. So if you want to make a trip to Fort Lauderdale, get out of the winter, this will be an awesome series. We'll be starting at Unity Church in Pompano Beach on Sunday, the 6th of March. And we'll be doing their Sunday service, and then we'll do Why Is This Happening to Me Again from 1 to 4:30 in the afternoon. Then Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, we'll do a workshop each night that will be work around these tools that we're telling you about and sharing with you. And then that Saturday and Sunday, we're going to be doing a mini intensive, a 2-day intensive that will include MindShifters and Still Point Breathing. So anybody that wants to come and join us and play with us, we'd be absolutely delighted to have you with us. We are blessed to be able to do this work with you and to support you in your healing process.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on MindShifter Radio with Dr. Michael Ryce, the Forgiveness Doctor, every day, Monday through Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Call-in number is 646-200-4169. Thank you to all our listeners and people in the chat room.
And again, you can go to our website. You can download the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, free. You can download the worksheet. Actually, there are a whole slew of worksheets and acknowledgments to Jeanie for the way that she's organized and set our website up. It's absolutely awesome. I'm so blessed to have you in my world. And you get ready to have the best year yet of your eternal life. That's what we're here to support you in on MindShifters Radio. Blessings.
Bye-bye.